Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Sam Ghanem is a dynamic entrepreneur, creative visionary, and the CEO of SG Inc. With over 23 years of experience in print manufacturing and branding, she specializes in helping businesses align their brand strategy with their core values to stand out and thrive. Her personal journey of overcoming obstacles and embracing transformation has inspired her to empower others through collaboration, connection, and creative solutions. As a passionate advocate for growth and alignment, she brings clarity, purpose, and a holistic approach to everything she does. Sam, thank you so much for being on my show today. We've been waiting for this moment for like almost 3 months, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be with you.
I just know our conversation is going to be full of love and just purpose. And we're meant to share our stories. And I'm grateful for you to be on my show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So if we can just go ahead and just take us back to the beginning of your journey, what were some of those pivotal moments that led you to where you are today?
Um, I guess I could start by sharing that I'm part of an immigrant family. My family's Lebanese. I'm first generation born here in America, the youngest of four girls. And their quest to reach, the American dream was beautiful. And I give them so much credit because when I tell you that they came here with nothing, and by comparison had quite a lot for themselves overseas back home, it was like almost like a juxtaposed journey. And with that, unfortunately, came quite a abusive childhood, very, very tumultuous. I only really knew what fight or flight was as a kind of standard way of living. Um, and as a result, I left home very young. I moved out at 14, and I guess, technically run away from home. Um, my great uncle saved me and really supported me in every aspect of my life. Like, literally speaking, every sense of the word, I felt that I was saved. We are in a beautiful place now. My family, my sister's my best friend. I can't say enough about all of us, but the in-betweens were extremely messy, extremely dark. And today, I could say that as a result of a ton of work, continuous work, completely surrendering to always being a student, like, period, um, I find myself in a position owning a strategic printing company and being co founder of a mindset, messaging, and mechanics business, helping people really get unstuck using my print experience and branding and how we show up on that frame of life as a platform to get really clear on what is it that you're projecting from your heart. What's the actual end game to the business endeavor? We know we want to make money, we know all those things, but really getting clear and supporting business owners. And I do that in a variety of ways. In truth, um, there is no straight line to success, and success is also ambiguous because people design their own definition of success only, always, every day, right? Um, and I would say that as a result of the message in my mess or messes, I've really discovered my own magical gift, which is hearing what people don't actually say and helping them understand that there's a significant difference between a beautifully crafted sentence that's articulated well and a whole bunch of words that actually mean something to you. And so often I think we develop our businesses with a mindset of what sounds good. And eventually we lose our way because there's no actual connection. And then we're completely unclear on our why. We know why we did it. We wanted independence, or we didn't want to work for the man, or we lost our job, or whatever the case is. Or we were told we should own a business because that's how we grew up. But I would say that between both of my businesses, they were born out of necessity, and my own personal journey, as well as that journey of my business partner, Janelle Kelly, and really understanding that we all have a superpower and we are all magical. And it's not to be cliche and all unicorn like, it's the truth. We each have a gift. You have a gift of podcasting and storytelling and this literal fairy godmother of sobriety and this like ownness, and you want to share it. So I relate to that, and that resonates with me a lot. And um, I guess I would say that there is another side to the darkness if you allow the light to come in, and you do, pun intended, allow for your insides to shine, and you really get clear on what you want. Like what do we actually want to do here?
Oh, heck yes. I think I've shared my story with you before.
Right,
And I know we had
right,
a one-on-one together and just sharing our experiences. And by the way, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's true. And we grow up thinking this is how life is supposed to be, and we have attachments to the outcomes.
right,
And I realized for myself, once I learned to just go what my passion is, whatever excites me the most, go for that one. Do it with integrity, the action work, and then not have attachments on that. Life is more amazing, and
right.
it's a blessing. But I know that alcohol played a big role in my journey. Now I can laugh at it now because I look back. Everything's laughable to me. Like, this whole freaking false matrix for me is laughable. And I'm just enjoying the freaking experience. And I'm just like, you know what? I want others to enjoy the experience with me as well. Now, you've actually mentioned to me before that you've experienced your transformation with the relationship with alcohol. Can you actually
Right.
share what led, yeah, to what that shift looked like for you and how it impacted your life?
Sure. Um, for me, and I want to preface this by saying I didn't do any of the 12 steps or go into any kind of treatment. I'm not a physician or a clinician. Um, I am my own self-righteous expert on what not to do. So by saying that, I want to share that alcohol was not a part of my life. I did not grow up in a family that alcohol was present. Funny, not funny. I've been waiting my whole life for people to tell me that there were like undercover alcoholics and drug addicts in my family to justify the insanity that was. But no, these people were crazy just because. Um, and I can laugh at it now. And I love you, and I love that everything is laughable. I'm also a stand up comedian, and comedy has played a massive, massive role in my healing. So, not to squirrel, but to share, alcohol did not play a big part of my life at all. In fact, I had my first drink at 22. I know that that for some is like, oh, that's not old. Well, if you look at history today, it's quite old, or later in life, not old. And I was even after the legal age limit to drink. To be funny, my first drink was port. It's like I was born an old man. I don't know really what that was about, but I love food and pairings of flavors. And my mom is a chef, and there's a lot of that eat, pray, love kind of experience in my life. So to me, you congregate in the kitchen. It wasn't a foreign concept to pair a meal with a drink. Fast forward, life's lifing, and I'm taking myself with me in every exchange, in every relationship, in every transaction, only always. And so what I didn't recognize in some obvious ways and some not so obvious ways, that the fun I was having was very short sighted. And quite frankly, it was a programmed in distraction. So I went through the kind of standard 20s for me, being having left home very young and not having the traditional college life. I didn't go away to college like the standard go away to college. So I didn't have the partying years. Those years came later for me. You know, music festivals, overnight parties, Miami, etc. And in fairness, it was fun. And then something shifted in my energy that was fueling the fun. And I didn't make the connection till much, much later. So in my mid 30s, I bought a business. So I then had a business, purchased another business, and all of the challenges that you could have imagined, plus ones that you could have never considered, like misrepresentation of the financials from the previous owner or COVID. None of those things were ever going to be on my radar. I don't know about you. And so all of a sudden, all of the issues and the trauma and the child abuse and this lack and scarcity and fear, the self doubt, the feeling of failure, the internal dialogue that was just garbage, a set of belief systems that were lies, like literally lies. They came from nothing. I manufactured them all. All of those paired with the financial misrepresentation and COVID put me in the forefront of representing my business in a way that I was desperate. And I'm very known in my community, and that's beautiful. But what I didn't recognize was as a result of being known in the community and as a result of my challenges, I became a master at putting on a face. And growing up in an abusive household, if we had bruises, we covered them up with makeup. Well, that practice rang true clear into my mid-20s. And I did it in small ways every day. If it was the extra layer of makeup because I was hungover, if it was I didn't want to drink and I didn't drink, let's say, for a week, and then I went to a networking event and every networking event came with 2 drink tickets and that became the norm. But my energy would shift 180. I was like in a prison in my mind. And it wasn't from a handle of anything. It could have been from 2 drinks. And then the drinks led to exhaustion, led to alternative ways to keep myself awake, led to, you know, I've never done Adderall, but I've certainly done blow and all these things. And I don't think I've ever said that on a podcast before. So thank you. I was just like, whoa, you just said that. I did. Hi.
Yeah, me too.
And
Hey, I've done it too.
right. And I say it not to, I'm not toting and I'm not proud, but I'm also not ashamed. Shame has no room in my life any longer. I share all this to say that I didn't grow up in this sort of upbringing. It was unfortunately a result of a much greater problem. It was a symptom of a much, much bigger problem systemically, because as much as I didn't grow up in a substance induced household, I grew up in an abuse induced household where you put a face on, you showed up stoic, which we misuse that word all the time because we were far from stoic. We were unhinged at best and dying inside. And I had, for me, what I consider a divine intervention. And it came in the way of extreme illness. I was more energetically diseased than I've ever been. I was sicker than I could ever tell you. And I've had surgeries before. I've been sick. This was different. This was something that if I were to have watched a movie, it would have been like a horror movie by comparison. And I was to the point that I had said, I'm having bankruptcy conversations because of this misrepresentation. I lost my home. My partner moved out without my knowledge. I'm grateful for my mom and my sister more than I can say. But in the moment, I feel like I'm their biggest burden. I'm approaching 40 and I'm leaning on my sister for a place to live. And I don't even have the ability to cover my basic necessities, forget about wants and desires. I'm just talking like basics. And I'm thinking, this isn't for lack of work. I'm busting my ass. I'm averaging 80 to 100 hours and I'm working and I'm selling. So it also wasn't a lack of sale. So here we are in the society. Sales is your value, is your productivity. Now we have this metric. How productive was I? How many checks on the to-do list? Well, it's not weird that blow and alcohol became part of the ingredients in a day. And were they every day? No. Were they every week? No. But man, when they were present, whatever prison I was in, suddenly I'm in solitary. And the best analogy I can give you is there was no limits to the degree that I was willing to run away from myself, including unaliving myself. And unfortunately, it did get that bad, but it got that bad with a mask on. So nobody was really in the know of where I was. And every week I thought this week will be better than next or last. And I just tried to kind of front. With this sickness in January came 14 days of insomnia. And on day 9, I had every intention to play God. And it wouldn't have been all that complicated in this world of fentanyl and blow and alcohol. Like, if I'm honest, I'm surprised it hadn't happened prior, even if it was unintentional. So on that end, you think, well, then maybe you deserve to be here. Well, I've lost family and friends that way. So I don't really, you know what I mean? I'm careful. But I will say, as divine as I know my protection to be, I heard a voice so abundantly clear. I was standing right in front of my sliding glass door, and I'm thinking, my mom and my sister will be better off. I'm a burden and a failure. I can't believe this is what has become of my life. Like, what a fuck up. And I'm thinking of different things that are horrific. And I hear a sound so loudly in a voice that says, you're so worried about your mom and your sister. Why don't you start talking to yourself like you're them? Because in my wildest dreams, in my worst of nightmares, if I had an enemy, I wouldn't speak to a soul. the way I was speaking to myself. Like it, and they would be, if somebody spoke to someone I loved like that, I would physically remove them from my life. Like, orange is the new black, I'll get a shovel. Like, get the hell out of my life. And it's wild to think of it that way. So today, I can tell you that after that moment, I didn't sleep for another 6 or so days. And I promised myself, if this is your last ditch effort and you're so worried about your mom and your sister, give it all you've got for you inside of you. And if you're a high vibing individual, why are you participating in low vibration activities? And somehow that simplicity just came over me. And I was like, you get to dig deep and figure out, sorry, what the fuck the issue is or what the issues are. Some people don't live long enough to do that. And you even survived this illness and these 14 days of insomnia and all of the horrific things that have happened. And you want all that to be in vain? And the biggest thing for me, I think that was a reframing, like a massive reframing. I recognize that we are all going to be a statistic because that's just how it is. That's math. Statistically speaking, there'll be a measure of you versus X accomplishing Y. So I get to choose which statistic I want to be. And it's completely within me. It's my decision. And I decided, even if I'm not sure which exact statistic I was going to be at the time, I knew which I wasn't.
Wow. You said that so beautifully, and it reminded me of how I used to talk to myself before. And I would say everything's so nice to everybody else. I was a big people pleaser, and I wanted to make sure everyone else was happy, but I wasn't happy. And I hated myself. I hated everything about me. And I'm like, geez, they're like totally putting up like a whole front completely. It's like, okay, Gina, this is fake Gina, just going out in the world. Everything's great. I was also um I was like a high achiever. So I was also getting good grades. I was like had to be things had to be a certain way. Everything looked good on the outside. Oh, she's married, she had kids, and everything looked good. But I was dying inside, and that's why I went to the bottle. And I hid that one very well because no one knew I had a drinking problem. Everyone thought, oh, this is just Gina, how Gina is. But no, I was drinking a fifth of vodka a day. Heck. I had my turning point was, I think I even said this in my talk, that it was a live or die situation, and I was sick of my sickness as I was tired of being ill in my own sickness, which was alcoholism. And so that's why I had to surrender. I think my biggest step was surrendering. And once I surrendered, I can't do that alone. I also had the divine intervention, and then which led me to the hospital. And then I really sat with myself, like how you sat with yourself, staying up for how many days did you say?
14.
Oh my gosh, that alone is torture.
Well, that's a torture tactic, but I know now, and I knew it then to a degree. Because I'll say this, I don't know what a greater prison is than knowing better and not doing better.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you don't know what you don't know, but then you do know and you still choose otherwise. And this is I'll only ever keep it at me. This is not for any viewership or anyone listening for me to, I'm completely keeping it here. So for me to know better and to not do better. And I will say this with complete and total certainty, which is why I prefaced it by saying I haven't worked the 12 steps. I haven't gone into a program. I don't think I'm different or special. What I'm saying is, thank God that those are options that are there for me. That was another form of intervention that I didn't need to go that route. I know that I can always lean in on those amazing resources that have saved lives, this one present company included. But I also understood that nobody's exempt. I didn't even grow up in that environment. And the thing was, because nothing looked like society had portrayed it to me, I felt like I didn't have the right to complain. I didn't grow up in alcoholism. I'm not an alcoholic. I grew up with an abusive dad. I've never laid a hand on a person. I speak to you so kindly. We're not going to talk about how I speak to myself. If you showed up and said, I'm struggling with alcohol or drugs, I would have helped you, but I wasn't showing up for me. And it became a very disproportionate view to go, oh, how interesting that I've programmed in these distractions to be the person that checks on everyone. I don't check in with me, to be the person who speaks so sweetly and lovingly and encouraging. I have notes from friends who call me their biggest motivator, and I'm in this fucking prison that I created. And it became this thing where I thought I could call myself fake and beat myself up because I could. I mean, I was used to that. Or I could say, honestly, fuck it all and put the bags down. I face it all, or I don't. But nobody was coming at me calling me a fake, calling me a loser, calling me a failure. And the day I put the bags down, Gina, like something did die that day. But in this energy and in this vibration, I didn't. Something did. And I don't know that something new was born per se. I think this was always here. And I think I programmed in distractions. I think that I muffled the mess on purpose and I tried to keep it so that I wouldn't have to face it.
Um, wow. Yes. Now, how did you actually rebuild your confidence and align your life with your values after those experiences?
I love this question and thank you. Because you know what's interesting when we want to talk about being disingenuous to self? If someone were to ask core values, like you think of how people would represent you in a room if you're not there, and people would say these beautiful things about me. Of course, I believe none of them. How are you going to say that I'm a person of integrity when I lie every day because I show up with a front? How are you going to say that I'm loving when I don't love, right? And there was it was like split. Today, I can say that it's like I've created such a deep connection in myself that I ask myself questions all day long to understand where I really stand on something or where I don't, because I'm constantly doing it's like a syncing of like Dropbox all day long. My head and my heart, my head and my heart, and my intuition. In that, if you were to ask how I'm doing, I don't just say I'm doing well, thank you. I actually take a second and I answer you. And if I'm not doing well, like a friend asked me yesterday, how are you doing? And I said, just feel funny. I feel a little off kilter. And he's like, why? What's up? And I said, I'm going to be honest. It's been 2 days that I really haven't had a pause for myself, 2 days. And then I said, but you know what's so cool? I'm so in check that it only took 2 days for me to figure it out. It didn't take 2 years. It didn't take 20 years, right? Because sometimes we're so far from ourselves. Myself, I'll speak on myself again. I was so far from me. That's why the nudges came in droves. I had to get physically knocked over. I had to get physically incapacitated. I had to get physically hospitalized, right?
Yeah.
For me today, I have a constant conversation with myself. I have a consistent stream of check in. And I also am wildly aware of those around me to the point of if I were setting up like my security team, like a detail, I am so in tune with who and what is where because in the end, it's the same thing. Who is representing you? And I don't mean that externally. I mean, they're a mirror of me. And so when I take the inventory around me, I look and I go, is this one, does this make sense? Does that make sense? Right? Because we get caught up in the stuff. I got caught up in the external validation, not from people, from the result. So if I worked and created sales and built a business and I was in the positive, then I was valuable. But I bought a business, built a business, was misrepresented financially. I'm in the red. I'm invaluable. And it became like a pass fail. Nothing, I had no attachments. It's like as if I was a widget and I could just throw myself away, if that makes sense, you know? So
Yeah.
today, with regard to aligning with my values, I trust my knowing. If it feels a certain way, I listen. And I'm speaking 80/20, by the way. I'll give you an example. I made a misjudgment recently. And I have a beautiful business partner who, ironically enough, identified the misjudgment before it happened. And I continued forward anyway. It's not about right or wrong. It was a misjudgment. I should have listened to my instinct and I didn't. The financial implication was minimal. The energetic implication was very, very frustrating, but I sat there for a moment. I would have sat there for years in comparison, and I would have berated myself. So I guess to answer it in a roundabout fashion, even in times of turmoil and when life is lifing, you still get to treat yourself with respect. You still get to show up completely integrous and with love. You get to, in fact, you must, because if you don't, how are you going to have any accountability for the outside? I felt disrespected and unseen very frequently. Well, no shit. I was disrespecting and disregarding myself all the time. Like it's not, I'm not trying to be funny or make it like so cut and dry, but it's true. I was calling this in the chaos. And then I would sort through it. Let's say you and I had something chaotic, I'd sort through it, and then I would go medicate it. Whether I medicated it by shoving down alcohol, whether I medicated it by just clenching my jaw and getting through a workout, it was like abuse in any regard. You know, workouts aren't bad for you, they're amazing for you. But from a certain energy, sometimes it's you abusing yourself,
Mhm.
right? Same thing with alcohol. I wasn't drinking every day. I wasn't drinking a fifth of vodka every day. I was drinking with an energy to maybe not wake up because it would be easier.
Yes, I was going to ask you, what activities or practices do you actually do now to align to your soul's purpose?
Every single day, non-negotiably. Call it an extreme commitment, and I'm okay with it. I journal every single morning, pen to paper. It's a prompting journal, and I start my day every single morning with a 5K walk. I force it to be a walk. I run, I lift, I do all of these. I literally, I'm yes to any kind of workout, and I love training, but I force it to be a walk because ease is not in my nature. Flow and ease and just like literally being with the wind, so to speak, is not my nature. And in the past year, I have walked to the point that people ask me if I have a car. I, I walk a lot. As a result of the walking, my presence is wildly, wildly present. And my ability to notice the detail, like how many times did I walk by that tree? I'm talking years. And I'm like, damn, Sam, like almost as if somehow they redid the landscaping in my neighborhood, like this lens. And I used to make a joke. I'm like, well, I did get new glasses. No, I literally got new lenses. Like, so walking, journaling, and I do end up inadvertently color meditating while walking. But I don't advise you to walk and meditate too hard because I almost walked right into a pool. But those are like life-saving things. I notice a complete difference in my energy if I skip one of those things. And the cool thing about them is they're free. They require one thing, that is you, and they both allow you the opportunity to move your energy. So when you use a prompting journal, you're surprised by the question. So say you're having an emotionally lower day. Sometimes the question is just lighthearted. If you could paint a room one color, what would it be and why? It could be very light, right? Or if you were an animal, what would you be? Like very just removed. And in other cases, the prompting question could be, do you notice yourself avoiding things? And if so, what are they? Right? So sometimes it can be benign. The walking, assuming you have the physical ability to walk, there's no frame of reference in my life as to time or distance. I say a 5K a day because the 45-minute commitment to me is the measure for me. And as a result, I've adjusted my life. So we were talking before about, we're like little abuelitas and it's 6 o'clock and we're tired. But the truth is, it's because I look so forward to getting up early in the morning and having that programmed in pause before the day starts. And we just get caught up, right? Because life's.
Yes, the first thing I do when I wake up is well, yeah, which is at 4 or 5 o'clock in the
Right,
morning.
right.
The sun goes up really now. It's a little bit different because the winter solstice is coming.
Yeah,
And so, and then yeah, I'm going to bed. I was sharing with you that I was looking at the clock and I'm like, I'm tired. And then I saw it was like 5 p.m. I'm like,
right.
man, people don't get off work until 5 p.m.
I
I'm ready to go
know.
to bed.
That's when dinner's at 3. We're
Right?
gonna be a hit in the nursing homes. Okay, we're gonna be great.
Totally, right? Oh my goodness. But I was gonna ask you, for someone who is feeling stuck, even in their own struggles, in their own transformation journey, what advice would you go ahead and give them?
The single-handed advice that I would give to anyone in any lane, in any demographic, in any place in life is don't you dare try to go at this alone. I say it with love. How dare you? How dare you remove the gift of blessing someone to show up for you from their purview because you didn't make it known? To me, when we say no, and I don't mean to anyone and everyone, and I don't mean if it doesn't feel good, do it. I mean, in general, we have this idea that hustle has to be hard and hard work has to be painful. That busy is a frame of life, like we just have to be busy for the simple art of being busy. And I don't mean fast moving is bad, and I don't mean slow moving is bad. I mean, if you're just filling up your day, again, I was programming in ways to distract myself from my life, and I was doing it consciously. I could never be, I can't front anymore if I tried. It was conscious. If every nook of time is covered, I'm good, right? Do not go at it alone. This world that we live in, you can argue pro or con against social media and access to information. But the fact of the matter is, no one knows what we need more than we do. And it might be as simple as saying yes to a TED Talk and sitting and receiving. I didn't utter a word. I couldn't. I was crying the entire time. And that's the day that I was blessed to meet you.
Hmm.
That's a small example. We can do all of these things virtually. And really, and I'm not trying to be funny, when you're feeling stuck, move your body, physically move your body. When we say sit with things, I'm going to probably make you laugh because I tend to be a bit more of a square personality type, very type A. Um, for those that did like personality assessments, apparently I'm a dick. I'm a DIC. That's not surprising. Very, very regimented, very strategically done and executed, not impulsive. So what would happen is when people would say sit in it, I thought that they meant physically sit down in it. And I'm thinking, is this some kind of torture tactic? Because like this is, and then I realized, holy shit, they don't mean it. They mean figuratively speaking, do not run. Don't do the thing you were doing, Sam. So do not go at it alone, please. And ask for help, even if you don't know what it is. Like, Gina, I'm feeling like I'm ruminating. I'm feeling very off kilter. I feel like maybe it's just because the last 2 days I hadn't really paused for myself and I'm not so sure. I didn't ask you for anything. You lended an ear. I shared transparently and you held space for me to just receive it. Those things go so far, and do that in partnership with moving your body. I don't care if it's literally inside your home and doing a lap. I don't care if it's 5 minutes outside. And if you're called to it and you want to just literally walk as long as I walk, walk. But move your body because rumination is dangerous. And the truth is, you're likely low on all of the natural healthy drug production that your body needs to make clear-minded, sober decisions, right? Because you're in it. And my business partner Janelle says it so well. When you're in the jar, you can't see. How do I see if my tail light's out? And it doesn't need to be people in droves. And it doesn't need to be medical professionals. And it doesn't need to be a paid service. There is absolutely a human being in your purview, even if it's by way of another organization like a nonprofit. Do not go at it alone at all. Like, under no circumstances. We were not technically born alone, right? We were created by two beings. Well, more than two beings, but you know what I mean. The whole objective here is not to go at it alone. And for a long time, I thought that that was strength. And I thought that was the definition of independence.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I always was like that. Oh, the independent woman. I don't need anybody. I can do this on my own. No. No. Then that was in my prison planet, in this prison planet,
Yep.
in my own mind prison planet.
Mhm.
Suffering because I was creating crap in my head that didn't exist. And once I figured out I don't always have to believe what my mind is telling me, that's when magic started happening. And then
You
I
know
started
what's
implementing good
interesting?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, so I grew up so in an abusive household. It's in I don't know what that statistic is, but it's not uncommon because it's pretty logical that there's codependency.
Mm.
People stay because they feel they have to or they're stuck, right? So I then wanted to be independent and not need anyone, and I could never dare be codependent because it seemed as though my mom was codependent because the truth is we become addicted to the chaos, right? And in fairness, she has 4 young children. He's the breadwinner, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I realized today, much like reframing or getting educated on what a word actually means, there is something called interdependence. It's a beautiful reliance. I equally relied on you with love to show up to this podcast that we scheduled today for us to have this beautifully gorgeous conversation. I'm not codependent. In other words, if I'm going to show up whether you do or you don't, because I'm going to show up. And I'm not too independent to have the conversation only in my mind and not on a platform like this because it's mine and I have to do this by myself. Interdependence is this beautiful, like a symbiosis, a choreographed dance of complementary pieces. We do it a lot in teams. I rely on you to get your part of the project done or to stay on your lane and keep your side of the street clean, not because I'm going to die if you don't, but the success of the team really does rely on it. And again, 80-20. So for me, I welcome an interdependent dynamic in my life. So I think it's strength to ask for help and to ask for advice and to show up and say, Gina, I don't even fucking know what the word means. So can you help me understand? Like that's where the magic happens. You can't know and be all the things. And if you choose to, I should say, when I chose to, man, was life hard and it was painful and it was dark. It was so dark.
Yes. So for me it was mostly like whenever I asked for help, I always felt like I was weak. But then my mind, once I shifted that mindset, reframed myself and like, you know what, this is not the right thinking. Let's change, just reprogram myself and start asking for help. And then I got everything that I needed and more because I asked for help. And it's important to have that community too. I mean, the opposite of addiction is connection and to connect with people. I mean, there's Facebook groups, there's meetup.com, there's people within your community that you can definitely connect with. And then just form some type of relationship with the same values, same morals that you have. That way you can support each other and be accountable with each other. I love accountability partners. I have that in my coaching, not my coaching business, but when I was in a coaching program,
Yeah.
I had accountability partners all the time.
Yeah. For me, I realized too. So on the days that I feel like I could just make my biggest accomplishment be moving from my bed to my couch, like I could. And some days that really was the biggest accomplishment, like, or showering.
Getting out of bed.
Yeah. Like moving. It's like not even walking, moving my body, like just like getting up and like doing the, like getting up in the morning routine. When I think about, and I mean, I know I'm talking to someone who understands the connection of all the things. But for those that maybe are like, oh, everything isn't connected and it's not that deep, okay, it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. But for me, the day that I'm like, I just like, can I hit pause? Indisputably, I show up and on the other side is a you, is someone that goes, dude, holy shit. Last time we talked, look, or they say something and you're like, it's just what I needed. Because what you're looking for is looking for you, and what's for you will never miss you. And there's no mistake. Like I am certain, and I mean all of the details, I came to realize all of them, the horrific ones, played a massive, massive role in me finding the messages in my messes. And so, if we choose a platform like this, for example, to have the hard conversations and to shine light within ourselves and within our communities, and to do it free of chains, unaddicted, just committed to personal development for the sake of ourselves and our community, like sometimes, and I don't mean show up for others before you, I mean on the day where even I, as much as I love peopling, I love lifing, I'm gay for the people, I love all the things, I want all the things, give it to me all the time. There are days where you're just like, an office day sounds good. Like I would really like to just kind of do the rudimentary. It's like when you stay home and clean the house.
Mhm.
And you're like, I want the windows open and the music playing, and I just want to get lost in, a podcast and cleaning, right? But when you show up on those days and you're like, and you don't even need to put the makeup on, dude, just show up. No, nothing against the makeup. I'm just saying, like, just show up, like, and use what you've got and start where exactly you are. And you may not know again what you need, but you know better than anyone else when something isn't tuned in right, when something is off. When that off kilter thing that happened with me yesterday that gave me a quick little like, boom, it's been 48 hours. You have not sat with yourself. You've journaled and you've walked, but you did make the mistake of taking a call one day. And those are, we all fall, like it happens. So 80% of the time I'm successful and the 20% catches up. And I think that you're right. Having a platform like a TED Talk, like a podcast, like a Facebook community where you can be anonymous.
Mhm.
I have to share this with you. There is a Facebook group that I'm part of because I didn't identify my addictive personality to anything that society shared with me as addiction because I didn't lie, pillage, cheat, steal. I didn't spike my coffee. I didn't have a handle in my car. And by the way, no disrespect to anyone. I'm just telling you that's how I viewed. I had to be homeless to have a problem. I had to be like sneaking it around. Yeah, did I stretch the truth? If my partner said, did you have a couple drinks? I'd be like, I had a drink. Okay, sure, ma'am, you had a drink. Like stupid shit. And I'm not saying that that's not bad. What I'm saying is, in my view, from my viewpoint, it wasn't that bad, right? So I joined this group and I see a lot of people post anonymously, and you see how wide the spectrum is of I had one drink, someone says, and I'm having the most horrific thoughts. On the other side of the page, you see someone that says, I've been alcohol free for 60 days and I messed up yesterday. And, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, if I hadn't gone down that road for a long time, I wouldn't have the same amount of understanding, compassion, or even desire to know more because you just don't know what you don't know. Like, you don't.
Yes. You don't know what you don't know. It's true. And it's interesting. And this journey of mine that I'm experiencing, and now that I'm learning a lot and I'm learning more and more that I'm learning, the more I'm like, man, there's so much I don't know. Still, I don't know.
Right.
So much information out there. And it's just like, oh, I feel like I'm called to do so much. And I'm like, nope, one at a time, Gina, one at a time.
But you can sprinkle it all in a little bit.
Little bits. Yes, absolutely.
I was speaking about that this morning because for a long time, comedy took a back seat in my life. And I don't mean like riffing with your friends and being witty. I mean like writing. I mean like crafting a bit, putting a skit together. I mean getting on a stage, holding a microphone in your hand, being in the environment. And I'm talking 90% of my life. I always had this kind of entertainer like feeling about myself. But again, if I entertained you, I could distract myself from me, but I could distract you from you too, because we're just laughing and having fun, right? And I am growing up in that contrast of a funny, busy, energy filled household that was also the darkest place I've ever been in my life is a really interesting juxtaposition to live in. Like, no wonder I felt like split, you know? And then I believe what I'm looking for is looking for me. So I don't know which came first, but when comedy saved me, it came in a very strange way through a client who registered me for my first comedy workshop against my will. I said I didn't have time. And it has become the most incredible platform. for me to have a measure of how far removed or not I am from a traumatic experience, even if it never makes it into my um, actual bit or my stage time. Like if I just show up to a class with my notes about my week and my serial killer handwriting and just all the psycho shit that's coming out of my head because it does. And then I get up there and we laugh about it because it's a room that you can say anything. Explicit should be printed all over every freaking wall. It is the proverbial no woke zone. Anything is permitted, you know? Um, and sometimes that's all you need is that release. Because for me, it's again putting the bags down. Like Gina, I won't, I'm a light packer as it is. And I will never, ever, ever, ever carry around tonnage again, like ever. Um, I think that as equal parts as the world is infinitely resourceful in terms of the help can look very non-traditional because it can be whatever you want it to be. Could I have imagined 3 years ago to tell you that stand-up comedy classes single-handedly saved my life? It sounds like a joke by itself, you know?
I love that though. I love comedy, by the way. And
You
even
do?
my husband too. Like he'll be the one calling, oh, that's such and such comedian from this movie. And I'm like, oh, it's a comedian? I didn't know, but I didn't know he was so passionate about it because he's
Right.
very conservative, and just very conservative. But I love him. But it's so funny because I love comedy. It brings you out, it takes you out of like the conditioned world, and we just become more of ourselves and explicitly, and it's fun. And
Right.
it's fun. Now, do you have any shows that are coming up that
Yeah.
people can check out, or maybe you can go ahead and drop your information as how to connect with you, and so I can also have that all in the show notes as well.
I will. My next show is December 29th at Sadman Comedy Cafe in Boca Raton, Florida. I will send a link for you to attach as well. Sadman Comedy Cafe is where the comedy workshops are hosted, and they're hosted by a gentleman by the name of Michael Panzica. His company is called the Panzica Approach, and he has single-handedly transformed how I look at the trauma in my life and how I get to laugh at it. It's also for those that are interested, supplemented a tremendous amount of my public speaking and my coaching, how I show up in life. It allowed me the opportunity to have the courage to say yes to a program where I was a student. And then I ended up creating a second business with my trainer as my business partner, just as an example. And a small little nugget that I don't know if you're familiar or if you're aware of. I met as well Cindy at the same TED Talk that you did. And I ended up being the host for her panel for her ACEs Matter organization in Orlando, Florida. So I'm only sharing all this verbal vomit to say asking for help in non-traditional ways and showing up to rooms that you otherwise may have said no because you were too busy can have the $1 million message, so to speak, and it can be the lifeline that you need. And you can be here on the end of the podcast to somebody who you admire so much. Like it can be this way.
Oh, that's so amazing. Oh, Sam, I can talk to you forever, but last question. If you can go ahead and go back and speak to your younger self during a difficult moment, what would you say to her?
I would say to her that I love her so much that she gets to win in whatever place she decides she wants to win in, and that she can decide what feels right to her. I would also tell her that she should and she could and she will just be a funny person and make a total fool of herself just because she can. And I would tell her that she is so, so strong and has every single answer that she'll ever need inside of her.
Beautiful. I love that, Sam. Beautiful. I love that so much, Sam. That really touched my heart. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I given you a virtual hug, and I love you.
Thank you
And
for
thank
making me
you.
cry
Oh.
on a Zoom.
Hey, I cried. I was tearing up too. Because whatever
I
you
was
said,
like,
I really resonated with me. And I love it all. I love what
thank you so much. You really do shine within. The name is not a name. Thank you for emulating it. And thank you for giving us a space and for really like removing the taboo. Honestly,
Well,
thank you
thank
so much.
It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on my show. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Sam.
darling.